my thoughts and in my dreams. They're always in my mind. These songs of hobbits, dwarves, and men, and elves, come close your eyes. You can see them too.
Superhero games. I think we've all kind of fiddled around with a superhero game at some point. They are rife with inherent problems, and I've never really played a superhero game that lasted more than really a week. I find most supers games are kind of one-offs. They don't start like one-offs, but people kind of realize these problems right off the bat and get bored with the game rather quickly. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions, but I'm just talking from my experience. Now, there's a lot of superhero games, and in fact, you could argue a lot of games that are not supers games are supers games, like Scion, Scion, which is, White Wolf, where you play basically an aspect of a god who can do godly things and shit like that, And I also know there's some relatively new ones which I haven't played, like, I can't even remember the name, but it's more Golden Age, or kind of more Pulp Fiction style supers, like Doc Savage and shit like that. Here they're very good, so, have fun with that, but my day, we only had a few, so I thought I'd go over them and talk about the aspects of each. The one I started with is by far the best, and I'll show you why. It's called Marvel Superheroes. It's got by far the best system I've ever seen for any kind of supers that in any aspect, character creation, combat, stuff like that. And it's very simple in a way, and so simple does not always equal good, but it's accessible, it's easily understandable, and it's basically teachable in like 15 minutes. So, and that's not to say there's not complexities to it, there are, but I actually have, my version is printed. I got a computerized copy of it, but before you start, I did own quite a few more of these, actually, and they were destroyed. They water damage took them out, and so I only have a few things left intact, like this is the judge's screen and stuff like that. But those of you who have played this already know the word that's associated with this. It's called face rip. And face rip is basically, that's all you need to know, basically, aside from having a table to roll up your characters. And face rip is an acronym for the various statistics you have, and I think I can rattle them off right now. Fighting, agility, strength, endurance, reason, IQ, and perception, I think. Face rip with an S. So right there, all you do, the first thing you do is you take a piece of, lined paper, and you write face rip straight down, and then you just roll your shit, and there you go. And so basically everything is resolved through this table. It's called the universal table. So depending on your power level, things are either easy, moderately difficult, or very, very hard. So if you got a really high level, if you got a really high level over here, there's almost nothing hard for you. And white is trivial. White is you can just do it. So like if you're, bad example, let's see, if you're the Sentry and you've got shit like this is like cosmic level powers. This is like being able to bench press a train. He can do it. So it's actually worth looking for. I don't believe this has ever been reprinted, which is a shame because it's really one of the better RPG systems I've ever seen. So, and actually it's got one of the better, more balanced character generation systems I've seen. That's one of the faults of many superhero games is balance. And this is a common problem in comics themselves, because not every superhero is balanced. You have limitations to various guys. There's, of course, Superman, and then there's dudes like, even something as simple as Batman. Batman in Marvel superheroes, I know he's DC, but he'd be a guy with a lot of great gadgets, and he'd have a lot of fighting ability, but the stats would balance it out, because his fighting ability would be through the fucking roof, and his IQ would be huge. But, okay, bad example. But then you've got dudes like the Punisher, for instance. And dudes like the Punisher in Marvel superheroes would suck, because, A, if you kill people in Marvel supers, your karma goes to 0, I think it is. So he'd have no karma, which is big. And, really, he shoots guns, and guns are useless. He's a different tier when it comes to that sort of thing. So if you're hoping to play a dude like the Punisher, it's not going to work out. And even there's not all X-Men are even remotely equal, stuff like that. So right away you have an inherent balance problem just because comics themselves are not balanced. And so some people, depending on the powers they roll, that gets to be an instant issue. Like if you roll a really sucky hero, well, the judge can let you roll a new hero, but then people who get moderate heroes are like, well, can I re-roll? I want to get a really good character too. And so you kind of get this problem where nobody's really satisfied with their character. The alternative, of course, being you play established characters. You play the Avengers or something like that, and that actually works pretty good because I believe they give stats for most of them. So it doesn't hurt to play Captain America, Iron Man, shit like that. Although the Hulk probably would be a little unbalanced, but he's balanced out by the fact his character is not very bright most of the time, and he's not all that dexterous, but he's really fucking strong. So there's good and there's bad when it comes to the balance. And this is the other game we would play a lot is called Heroes Unlimited. This is an older edition, if not the oldest. No, it's revised, so it's probably second. This is based on rifts, that kind of rift system with OCCs. And at first I kind of liked this. Its weaknesses show through really quickly, but it's got a very interesting character generation. So, and it is, I want to say, more balanced, or it's balanced in different ways, I guess. So you've got characters of different class, like you've got Bionics, you've got guys who are a little like Batman, in that they're called like, again, bad example, they got like gadget type guys whose powers are based on gadgets. You've got magic characters who get their characters through a source of magic, like, Doctor Strange would be such a character. Or even guys who have magic. I don't know if Dr. Fate is magic, but yeah, Dr. Fate would be kind of a magic guy. He's got, either they cast spells or they have a magic thingy that gives them stuff. So there's characters like that. There's mutants. And, many of these are quite similar because they really just boil down to what powers you have. But the type of character gives you different options for, like, background and stuff. So that's that. And it's actually got a lot of, each power is very well defined. And they're very cool to write down. So even this, like, there's like metamorphs, guys who can turn into animals and shit like that. So you got a guy who can turn into a bear. So it's got, every power gives you all these different skills, and the skill bonuses stack. It's interesting. The problem with this sort of thing is it all boils down to, if I can find it, in fact, they even got the Wolverine clause. That's it. If you want to be Wolverine, there you go. But it all boils down to one table in particular. Maybe two tables, if I can find it. It's pretty early on. Where is it? Well, I'll find it. But it all boils down to a table where you roll. The first thing you roll is how many powers you get. And from there, you roll what class of powers they are. So you have minor powers and you have major powers. So if you roll really low, like if you roll like a 2... you get like 1 power, and it's a minor power. So I actually rolled a guy I called the pool boy, because he got 1 minor power, and that was water breathing. He was not remarkable in any way, but he could breathe underwater. So I was like, what would he... maybe he fishes shit out of pools? So that was the character who, we call it an innkeeper, who you just scrap and move on. So... but he was the running joke. Whenever you'd make a character, he's like, is he worse than the pool cleaner? I don't know. So, wow. Hang on. Determining supervillains. Okay, so there's aliens and shit like that. So, yeah. You've got a table that... I gotta move up and show you. It determines how many powers you get, and then you determine what level the powers are. So... so the lowest one is this is different than I remember. One major super ability. Oh, no. Okay, so yeah, if you roll... now I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, player can skim through the super abilities and choose the ones that he likes, or you roll randomly. And so, if you're playing new characters, and this does not really have any established characters, in picking, if you're a DM, you wouldn't trust your, because I want invulnerability and wingless flight and X-ray vision and Superman, basically. Invulnerability is one of those powers that are kind of vetoed from the beginning because nothing can hurt you. I think there's a thing where you can force the character to get a weakness. Where is it? I know that there's something that, because it says 1 major super ability and 3 minors, 4 minor super abilities only, 1 major and 1 minor, 5 minors, 2 majors. So they kind of do it to where they balance, but I remember having 1 power, 1 fucking minor power. I don't, if he had another one, I don't know what it was. Like, let me look. If he had another one, I don't remember. Heightened sense of smell, maybe? No, I don't even think so. He didn't have control elemental force water. Intangibility, growth, sonic. He didn't have any of that. Oh, minors. Adhesion, bend light, energy resistance, healing factor. He may have had a heightened sense of something. Maybe radar, although radar I remember being pretty good. I don't know. It wasn't good. I remember water breathing being the only thing that was at all useful. Maybe I rolled the character wrong. I don't know. He didn't have any majors. I know that. It may have been 1 major, 1 minor, because his sucked. Anyway, you had these powers that you would roll up, and invariably nobody would be really happy, because you'd roll stuff that would directly conflict. Like, why did I close the book? Why the fuck did I do that for? You'd have problems where a guy would be like, I roll winged flight and wingless flight. And I think there's a thing in the book that lets you overlay some things, like it specifically says if you roll wingless and winged, you can re-roll. But there'd be stuff like energy. I can't even think of it, but we had stuff that would directly contradict each other a lot. Now I'm curious, what would directly conflict? Wow, I'm embarrassing myself now. Shit. Or stuff that just wasn't useful. Again, like if you got wingless flight and winged flight, well, who gives a shit about winged flight? You might get a character who had a lot of just really boring sensory abilities, like, heightened sense of hearing and water breathing. Yeah, that actually might have been it. It was like, he hears really well and he can breathe. But none of his stats were at all remarkable. Like, he was completely average right across the board. I think that was, like, just boring. Some things would not be useful at all. Adhesion, he sticks to walls like Spider-Man, and radar. That sounds a little like Spider-Man, but yeah. Or adhesion and... Well, there's also levels of powers. So, like, I think you also rolled... In fact, that might be Marvel. Now I'm getting them confused, but you could roll a lot of... In fact, that might have been a Marvel character that was the pool boy. Let me check. But you get what I'm saying, is you could get powers that would directly conflict, or they wouldn't be useful if they were random. And, you'd really have to focus on... The DM would have a hard time, even if you stuck with it. You know what I mean. So that was a problem with inherent character balance. Character generation was always equitable. So basically, I think the best thing to do was to... Well, Heroes Unlimited, there was no fallback. There probably was a setting for Heroes Unlimited, but I don't think they had any established dudes. Certainly ones that you wouldn't have a connection to at all, So it's a little like almost City of Heroes, where, I really wanted to get in the City of Heroes MMO, but there's, there's nobody I could relate to. I forget the name of the kind of the Captain America Superman, not the Minuteman, but you know what I mean. So, in fact, that's how boring he was. He was just kind of a stand-in for that guy. And even DC Universe Online, here's what its fatal flaw was. It was you couldn't play as fucking Batman. I don't sign in to DC Universe Online so I can be some schmuck that Batman orders around. If I'm playing a villain, I want to be the Joker. I don't want to be some guy the Joker orders around. Fuck that guy. I don't want to be the guy who Catwoman bosses around. Who the fuck is Catwoman to tell me to do shit? There's no feeling of importance when it comes to those characters. You don't want to be Robin. You want to be Batman. So, and I know, I would be, the next question is, well, fucker, how would you do an MMO where not everyone can be fucking Batman? I'm like, I know, I don't know, but, and I know you could probably make a character who functions like Batman or functions like Superman, but it's not the same, because you gotta level up shit and do all that. So, I don't know how you do an MMO because everyone would want to be these major characters, or maybe not. Maybe you'd have somebody who wants to be like Tommy Monahan, where you're Hitman. But those are kind of outliers of statistics. So I think it is preferable, especially in an RPG, to play characters that are at least established, and if they're not balanced, you got nobody to blame. So if you're playing Wildcat from the DC universe, and another guy's anyone else basically, Wildcat, his power is he fights really good, or he fights good in relation to other people. So, that's about it. If you want to be like fucking Captain Boomerang or something like that, or his equivalent, power to you. There's not a lot of, you know what I mean? So, that's really the best thing that I could think of is when we did it. And the other thing, it was, so a lot of people, that doesn't even make some players happy. They're like, I want to make my own character. And so then you've got this thing where, you roll up a character and he's basically Wolverine, or you roll up a character and he's basically Cyclops. So just play Cyclops, But what if the character hates Cyclops? He's like, I don't want to, there's a lot of problems with that. Whereas when the random choice oftentimes is not ideal. In fact, that's the big complaint with a lot of random systems. Like if you want to play D&D, well, back in the day, you still rolled your stats. And so if you got stuck with the character you didn't like, it used to be back in the day, you rolled them in order. You rolled your stats in order. So if you got stuck with someone, well, tough luck, motherfucker. You rolled a thief. You're playing a thief. So there you go. But nowadays, there's point assignments, or you could, in 3rd edition, you could shuffle the things any way you wanted. But again, with random choice, your stats may have not been that great. They might have been kind of painfully average. You might not have had a stat that was at all remarkable. Like maybe they were all 12s to 14s. And under the rules, well, kind of stuck with that, So yeah, the character creation was always kind of problematic. Or at least in my experience it was. So then you've got another problem when it comes to heroes. And it's that heroes are oftentimes defined by, well, one thing. What does Cyclops do? He shoots shit from his eyes, optic blast from the punch dimension. That's it. Really, that is fucking it. That Cyclops, his only answer to anything is to shoot it with his eye beams. It is so boring. In fact, I don't know how Cyclops has gone this long with this one fucking power. Because that's all he does. He's like, oh, I shoot with my lasers. I'm firing my lasers. Every fight. And so that's, I guess in a fight, that's him. Even Wolverine, his answer to it, they actually make fun of it in the X-Men movies, where he's, Wolverine's like, I'll take care of that computer. And Magneto's like, what are you going to do? Scratch it with your fucking claws? And he's like, it's all I know how to do. That's the characters. And so even in D&D, when you're kind of given a role, that that's not usually your only answer to everything. So even when the thief is given stuff to do, he has skills. He can do shit. Now the fighter's kind of fucked. He's got one thing he does well, and that's hit things. But I don't know, maybe you disagree with me on that score. I just think that one has more options. Hang on, Oreo's stuck. Hang on. Out you go. Don't want her peeing in the room. Well, what'd you want to go out for? I don't know. Silly puppy. But I never had that problem with D&D where I felt like I only had one option. Although, I almost always like to play wizards, or failing that, a thief, because thieves have, I think, more options than a lot of other characters, because when it comes to rangers, you kind of lock yourself into one choice. When it comes to fighters, you kind of specialize in one thing, and that's what you do. But again, there's maneuvering, there's feats that you can kind of configure. Wizards are like the ultimate choice guys, where they have a lot of spells and they can choose what they want to do per day. I don't like sorcerers for that reason. Sorcerers in like 3rd and 4th edition, because they're like wizards without the choice. You know, sorcerers, they're like Cyclops. They have their sorcerer blasts, which they can do at will anytime, and they're like zap, zap, zap. Wow, this is fun. I'm doing this every round. And sometimes, you know, when they get feats, they can kind of configure what they want to do with that, but that's way down the line. And even then, their main choice is like, I fire my really special blast. Ooh, look at the damage it does. Well, yippee-ki-yay. You know. So then you get this problem where, like, if you roll one defining superpower, there you go. Oh, I know another character that's really useless. Let's say you just roll, you know, flight. You know, that's your choice. Is like, you fly around. Yay. Or you got some choice like flight and radar, or flight and energy absorption. That's another thing that's great. You know, you get adhesion and you can absorb water. Look at how cool I am, you know. I stick to walls, and if you throw a bucket of water at me, it don't faze me for shit. You know, or you get stuck with it, you know, you roll Aquaman. Let's say you get a really good water-based superhero. Well, if you're not in the pool, if you're not in the ocean, you got nothing to do, man. Like, you know, even Aquaman had super strength and stuff like that, so he had a little more options. But if you've basically rolled Aquaman without that, wow, okay. You know, that's your first question. Is like, oh, Lex Luthor is attacking so-and-so. And you go, does it take place in the ocean? No, fuck. Sorry, guys, I have to sit this one out. Sorry. That's basically it. And in Spycraft, for instance, there's certain classes that are just useless, you know, except for one defining characteristic. So in Spycraft, if you chose the Wheelman, and the Wheelman's a good class, but all he does is car chases. So if it don't involve cars, or they're not locked into cars, like they can do planes, they're kind of guys who can drive anything. But if it don't involve driving something, you know, if they go, agents, we need you to sneak into, you know, Shadow Moses Island and stop Metal Gear. The Wheelman's like, I can drive the boat there. And then what? I can hold a gun. You know, so when you're Cyclops, the first question you ask is, can I shoot it? No. I'm going to sit here then. You know, considering you've got this case where, you know, there's 4, usually around 4, maybe 6. You've got this issue where, like, you've got a bunch of specialized dudes. There's not a lot of teamwork going on. I just get bored with it. So you've got really over-focused characters. Really the only option, and like I said, even if you want to choose like the X-Men thing, and somebody's like, I want to be Wolverine, all you do is stab shit. Okay. Other characters just have more options, and I guess that's the strength of the X-Men, which I never liked the X-Men, but I guess that's the thing, is everybody specializes in one thing, so as a unit, they actually are more effective than the sum of their parts. That doesn't still help, you know, it's when you're reading the comic, you're like, oh, the X-Men, they're really cool. As a team, they can do anything, but it's not much fun playing Cyclops. Whenever your turn comes up, the DM asks, what do you do, Cyclops? I shoot it. Okay, roll the hit. Pff, yay, next round. What do you do, Cyclops? I shoot it. What do you do, Wolverine? I go into Berserker Fury. Spider-Man has more options. You know, I swing on my web and I go over here, and then what? I kick the guy, or I web the guy, and he's got like 2 options. Still twice as many as fucking Cyclops. I guess I'm just going over the same ground over and over, but that's, you know, when you're playing any kind of supers game, you're going over the same ground over and over. therein lies the problem. There's Hero System, which I never played because Hero System always kind of intimidated me. Have you seen those fucking books? I don't even have a book that fucking thick. Hero System is like this thick. It's like 900 goddamn pages. The Wheel of Time books were shorter than that. It just takes so long to learn. I'm looking at this fucking brick and going, Jesus, that book is long. Marvel Supers is like a fucking pamphlet. You know, it's like this is like 3 Marvel superheroes books and it fits in a binder. I could read this in a half an hour. You know? And the system is so much simpler. Hero, they've got all these stats and you got all this shit. And it's, you know, when it comes to Marvels, you got that table. You roll a percentile. How hard is it? Then that's it. You know, you do green damage, you do yellow damage, you know, that's it. If you got a yellow success and the other guy got a green success, the yellow guy did better because he had to, you know, that's all it comes down to. Yeah, that's the problem. And I'm sure I can't even think of the other game. There was a really good one that looked Golden Age, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was, there's like Savage Worlds. I don't think that's it, but yeah, that was, there's kind of, what were the other ones? They have really different takes on the superhero thing. Actually very creative, where, I don't know, like Golden Age, but grittier. I can't even describe it. I think this was kind of a disappointing episode, honestly, because I just kind of said the same thing for 20 minutes. But there you have it. Oh, here's another thing I wanted to say.